right, podcast 35.
Yeah, here we are without Eric and Jeremy.
Yes, Dani and Sam. We are hopping in the driver's seat for this one.
We are. So, Dani, let's get an update on you before we start our topic. So, how you doing? How's training?
I'm good. Training is great. We've been very busy. Lots of training.
Lots of new clients.
Lots of new clients. Yeah, I was out of town for a little bit, came back, and it was like, boom, new person, boom, new person.
Yeah, we have a lot of new people. It's awesome to see new faces around here. Not that we don't love the old faces, either, but
yes, I totally agree. But yeah, it's been really fun. I love getting to know the new people and
tell them where you went. Do they all know?
I don't know. I was in Colorado.
Yeah.
I was snowboarding, chasing snow everywhere we went.
Yeah, for like a week, right?
Like 3 weeks.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I was gone for a while. Yeah,
wow.
Chris and I got the super icon passes this year, and we were like, well, gotta make it
That's
worth it.
so awesome. Oh my gosh.
Let's go.
I'm jealous.
Snowboard.
That's awesome.
It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
What's up with you?
Oh, nothing new. I mean, I've only been on the podcast once. I don't know. I think you haven't been on
I think I've only been on twice.
But people see you a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because you're their, trainer, commonly.
Uh-huh.
Nothing has changed. I mean, still a student. Still working here. Just getting ready for the summer, I feel like.
Yes.
And I do train, a couple people here and there, so it's cool.
Yeah. I think some people will see you more next week, too.
For sure, yeah, because you'll be gone.
Yes.
Again. Which is awesome. I'm like, not that you're going to be gone, of course, but I'm looking forward to meeting some people that I don't know and training them a little bit, because I know I'm not a normal trainer here, but it'll be cool to be able to do that for a little while. So.
I think our clients really like switching it up too. So it's always fun.
Yeah, everybody's got a different energy. All of our Jeremy, Eric, obviously you and I, compared to them and compared to one another. So I think they enjoy it too. Yeah. It really switches up the energy that they interact with while they're here. Yeah,
and just the different styles. I feel like we're very diverse in our training styles.
Yeah, way diverse, for sure.
Which leads us right into our topic today.
So we're going to talk about training styles today, which is very interesting for me. I don't know about for you. Mm-hmm. I love talking about different styles of training because I feel like I've been through lots of different styles of training since starting to work out.
I agree.
So, and you were a college athlete.
Mm-hmm.
I was a college athlete. So it's we probably went through sports style training, very specific training for the sport that we're doing. And now both of us kind of train on our own and we train other people. So we really interact with lots of different styles.
Yeah.
But specifically today, we'll talk about 3, I think, right?
Yeah, I think we've got 3.
Yeah, 3 styles. And then we can talk about the goals that people have and why they should use them. Yeah, I suppose. So.
Yeah, and how they lead to what training style they should use.
Yeah, for sure.
So what training styles did you use when you were in college? You played softball, right?
I did, yeah, and I was a dancer. So I feel like for me it was very different because in softball, nobody cares your size as long as you're good. Mm-hmm. There's a wide, I think even more variety of size people in softball and baseball than any other sport. Mm-hmm. Because most of the time it doesn't matter. You have to be quick, right? But most of the time it doesn't matter if you're a larger human versus a smaller human, as long as you can play the game.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're in basketball, you have to be very in shape, and for most people that means they're thinner.
Yeah, there's no pinch runners.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's a little different. I did do a lot of weight training for softball, but then for dance, we did a lot of cardio endurance, of course. Mm-hmm. Very little cross training. If we did it, it was body weight exercises because they don't want you to get a lot of extra muscle mass.
Yeah.
Because then it doesn't have to, but oftentimes people let it limit their flexibility and their mobility. Mm-hmm. And so for dance, that's a no-no. Yeah. Right. So I did, really difficult weight training for softball. And then I would do HIIT style training and cardio endurance training and all this stuff. in college.
Yeah.
But what about you? You played basketball. So
yeah, basketball.
what do you remember doing the most?
Oh, cardio.
Yeah,
endurance.
I figured.
It was so much running.
Yeah.
I look back on it and I don't know how I don't know how I ran.
You were
so
a runner.
Much. I was a sprinter too.
Yeah. Sprints. Mm-hmm.
It was like even on the days where we had to quote unquote do long distance and run 3 miles. It was still like I'm pushing like a 7-minute pace for a mile. Like,
wow, that's good.
Just because you're just so used to just sprinting up and down a basketball
right
court.
Of course, yeah. And did you guys cross train?
We did weight training like once a week.
Okay.
And quite honestly, in high school and even in college, it wasn't taken very seriously.
Yeah, I believe that.
And I wish that it would have been, because my coach would always be like, you need to put on muscle.
Right.
Like, get your legs stronger, get your arms stronger. If you just had a little bit of meat on your bones.
Because you're running so much, it's like if you don't weight train, it's just gonna fall
I'm
off
a full-time
of you.
student, I'm a full-time athlete, and I have a job. Like, wait, when do you want me to get into the gym?
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, we did mostly endurance cardio stuff. Yeah, other than that, I didn't really get into like the other training styles until after I was out of sports.
Okay.
Started doing more yoga and wanting more flexibility, wanting more muscle, rock climbing, all that stuff.
Right. So a lot of different exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same here. I feel like when I was in college, I also like being an athlete, like in my off time, which just sounds, I'm like 25. I don't even know how I handled this like 6 years ago. I'm like, what the heck? My body was torn up. But in my off time, I would run long distance. And so I would compete in like marathons and triathlons during like the summer and stuff like that. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm like adding that to the training styles that I did a lot of different stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't know how I did it all at once. I don't know how we, like, college athletes do it all at once, to be honest. Like, when I'm looking back at it, I'm like, wow, we were disciplined.
It's because we think the world is our oyster, and we're just like, we can do anything.
I will kill myself for this. Okay, but so we'll get into different styles for other people. We're just being brief.
Yeah.
But, you know, so the first style we can talk about is like a traditional weightlifting style.
Yeah.
Which I would refer to as bodybuilding style training, because it's like very rigid weightlifting rather than like adding in, you know, jumping jacks or something of that nature, burpees or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's really just like you get in, you lift weights, and you leave.
Yeah.
And a lot of bodybuilders follow that plan, so that's why I think I refer to it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would say for us, we've discussed it, and I would say, you know, bodybuilding style has a very high emphasis in like building muscle tissue.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of, I mean, rest periods are pretty crucial.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it is a good style of training to incorporate, I feel, for almost anybody.
I totally agree. And that's why it pains me a little bit to say bodybuilding style, because then people are like, oh,
I don't want to be a bodybuilder.
I can't do that. I'm like, okay, it's not, but it's not that. It's just the style. It's like it's very traditional. Like when you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, you're like, that's what he did.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So,
but that look of Arnold Schwarzenegger and
is what intimidates people.
Yes,
people. Right.
But even just incorporating a weight training once a week.
Right, just specific weight training. Yeah.
Even if your goal isn't to gain muscle, or even if your goal is to lose weight.
Totally.
It's still,
you should still incorporate
a great style of training to incorporate in your regular workouts.
Totally.
For sure.
And I feel like you're totally right. Weight training should always be incorporated, like just to keep strength, you know, bone density, muscle mass, and in some capacity. Like you don't have to be huge to have muscle mass, but you should have some sort of tone, lean muscle on your body, right? If you want to be healthy. So
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I feel like this is the one that most often gets lost in the pursuit of weight or fat loss.
Yes.
Because, I mean, we've done a Debunk Friday on it, but people think, oh, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to lift a heavy weight and then I'll be bulky, which is the Arnold Schwarzenegger look.
Yeah.
When he's not like ripped to shreds, that people are intimidated by. But really, I mean, lifting weights doesn't make you bulky. It's going to build lean tissue. And it's a necessity for people who want to be healthy to have that. A whole nother podcast is talking about how you get bulky, and that would be related to nutrition, but we can't tackle that today.
Yeah,
so,
that's a lot to take on.
But yeah, I mean, bodybuilding style training or traditional weightlifting, you know, it's going to incorporate a lot of rest, like you said. Probably more rest than any other.
Yeah.
Because it's really about how much weight can you lift with the right intent and the right form for each exercise, rather than keeping your heart rate at a certain level or something like that.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned the good form, because a lot of the time I feel like people go into weightlifting with this intention of I have to lift heavy, or if I don't lift heavy, I'll look weak. When in reality, you're just setting yourself up for injury or, you know, just more stress than you need to, and creating bad movement patterns for the body in the long run. So I definitely do see a lot of my clients, even they're like, oh, well, you know, back in the day I was curling 65 pounds one arm, and it's like, okay, that's great.
Right.
I'm glad that you were able to do that at one point. Let's cut that in half.
Right, but we're not there yet.
Yes.
I'm not saying you can't get back to it, because you could.
But let's work on the form.
Right.
Let's work on really isolating the muscles.
Right.
And then go from there.
Right. And I feel like every style of training, there is emphasis on this. Like, right, you never want to do something that's going to put yourself at risk.
Yes.
Like injury-wise. But especially with this style, because it is so heavily focused on weight training, that people do like to challenge themselves with challenging weights. And if you really don't pay attention to like the form, what actual joint is moving, and like mechanically how it's supposed to look and feel, you could definitely hurt yourself on this. And you're not going to grow from not paying attention to, you know, what form you should be using with this either. I mean, you got to have the right intent behind each movement in order to make it worth it. Yeah.
My huge thing with my clients, they'll know, is my pelvic floor lock. Because chronic low back pain is so predominant today. And everybody always complains of back pain. And I am always stressing to my clients, no matter what exercise we're doing when we are weightlifting, whether it's a cable tricep extension,
love that.
like tuck your tailbone under, lock your pelvic floor, and engage your abdominals. Like even when you're squatting, even when you're in a
especially when you're squatting. Everyone, please do that when you're squatting.
It's like my thing, and everyone probably gets so annoyed with me because I'm like,
oh yeah, but that's what you're there for, right? I mean,
abdominals. Yeah. Engage them.
Right. Because people wouldn't think about it otherwise.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're there to make sure they do it, or else, you know, like you said, low back injuries and pain are very common, especially for athletes and weightlifters, because it's so easy to have improper form with like some of the movements that you would do in traditional weightlifting, a squat, a deadlift, something like that. That puts your spine in such a poor position if you don't do it correctly.
Standing bicep curls.
Yeah, even that. I mean, literally anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything.
Where you're holding something heavy. Like you really need to be aware of that kind of thing.
Yeah. So always be aware of the weight that you're lifting.
Yes.
Try not to let the ego suck you in and tell you that you need to be lifting heavier, because get that form down and eventually you will lift heavier.
Right. And that another point with this style of training is, you know, people want to lift heavier often. I feel like when you do this style of training, honestly, when you do a traditional weightlifting style, the only way to challenge yourself is to push weight. right? And that's why people are like, oh, I need to lift heavier. But you got to work your way up slowly, comfortably, like not too comfortably, obviously, but in the right time, so that you're not just like forcing a weight that you really can't control. But I mean, the way to challenge yourself is to use a challenging weight so that it becomes a catch-22, because really with cardio endurance and HIIT style training, you can push those more time. Like I'm running, okay, well I ran 40 minutes yesterday, I run 45 today. That's pushing it. But with this, you push weight, and the only way to get it to work is to push heavier weight so that you get more muscle hypertrophy. And I feel like that's why people really sort of try to outdo themselves too often.
Yeah. I totally agree. Totally agree. But there's multiple ways to do these things.
Yes. Yeah. Let's talk.
I would love to talk about drop sets. I feel like that's definitely one that I use quite a bit. So for those who are listening, drop sets. So that's basically performing an exercise with weights, and you want to start with the highest weight that you can lift when you're obviously in the right form.
Right. And for the correct amount of reps.
Yes.
Like if you're trying to hit 8 or 10, you want to use a weight that's going to be challenging at 8.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to max out.
Right.
And only get, 1 to 3.
Right.
But you also want to make it difficult for yourself. You want to try and get as many reps as you can. And then in between each set, you're going to lower the weight. Right. And try and up the reps and basically push your muscles to exhaustion. Right.
The goal, I feel like for me, when I train somebody, the goal with a drop set is like, I'm going to lower the weight 10 to 15%. Not very much. I mean, it's still going to be heavy, right?
5,
when you do
10
it.
Pounds,
yeah. And then I want you to see if you can get the same amount of reps that you did on the first one.
Yes.
Because it sounds like, oh, I dropped the weight, it should be easy, right? But if you're actually pushing to exhaustion on the first time, or failure, if you're at that advanced level, mechanical failure, then it's not going to be easy.
Yes.
And most of the time, I don't even get the same amount of reps.
Yeah.
I would say almost never. So
never. Yeah. I have clients always so confused because they're like, wait. Even just this morning with Israel, he's like, wasn't I just doing that?
Right. And like, I did 12 and then I did 5.
But do you know what you did before it?
Right. I'm like, yeah, that's
your muscles
that
are
means
tired.
You did good.
Your muscles are tired.
Yeah. So another one, I don't use that often, but I do like when I'm really trying to challenge people. Most oftentimes, like beginner to intermediate people who like need that real push to see if I can get them out of their comfort zone, is a superset, where you put 2 exercises together back to back. So you perform one, and you're tired, but you have no rest. You just go into the next, a different exercise in a set. And, typically people do these with like antagonists.
Yes.
Muscles. So like a bicep and a tricep.
Yeah.
Because if you did a bicep and a bicep, it's like, that's almost like a drop set or a rest pause. Right?
Yeah.
So you want to do it with an antagonist. But
I think there was confusion in the fitness world for a little bit though, where people thought you were supposed to do the same muscle group back to back.
I agree.
I remember when that light bulb hit like a couple years ago, where I was like, I've been doing supersets.
I definitely did that. Yeah. What? In college when I was training like on my own.
Yeah.
I would do that all the time, and then I was like, wait, why would I superset something that's the same muscle group?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why wouldn't I just do a straight set?
Yeah.
That's harder or something. Exactly. I don't know. It's like, what?
I know. So I love supersets. They're actually like one of my favorite things.
Yeah, I know you like supersets.
Because I'm like antsy when I'm in the gym. I'm like, I don't want to rest for too long. I want to keep going. I want to keep my heart rate up. And like, I like the cardio of it all. That's probably the basketball player in me.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of sneak peek of the binder. You'll see I offer a couple workouts in there. Which one I was looking at, and I was like, well, who wrote this?
Was it
I
you?
had like 9 exercises, and they're all legs.
You had a lot of exercises.
And I was
if
like,
somebody tries Dani's home workout in the binder.
This meant to be 2 days.
For legs.
For legs, yeah. It was like
Good
a
luck.
leg circuit day, and I was like, I would never do this.
Oh, but I mean, let him try.
Anyways, but
I thought I was like, man's too trying to kill him, but it's cool.
Hey,
it's
you
fine.
can totally try it. If
Try
you're
it.
trying to kill your legs and not walk for 3 days.
Literally.
But anyways, my other one in there is legs and core, and it's like one of my favorite things to superset is my legs and my core. Like even in my squat, I'll lift heavy in my squat, and then I will do hanging crunches.
Ooh.
Like I know I'm crazy.
You're a nut.
I'm a nut.
That's awesome. Though.
But I'm like, let's go.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so Dani loves supersets.
Yes.
I love drop sets. And now we're to a straight set, which is literally probably the most boring one, but very useful.
Yeah.
Especially for advanced lifters who are like willing to just kill themselves on something.
Yes, definitely effective.
Yeah. Which is just one exercise. You do it until exhaustion or mechanical failure if you can. And then you rest. And you deserve the rest after that if you really push yourself hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
absolutely.
sure. And then a rest pause. Do you do rest pauses as well?
I really don't.
I often do, but when I work out with, I have a coach. When I work out with my coach, she does rest pauses a lot.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't really like them, like doing them, but I love to implement them for other people.
Yeah.
And I'm probably just a weenie because I don't want to do them because they hurt. But,
yeah.
But a rest pause is like similar to a drop set, except for there's no drop.
Yes.
Right? Like you do the exercise at a heavy weight, and then you take about 10 to 15 seconds, and then you do the same weight again, and then you take about 10 to 15 seconds, and then you do it again.
And now this is different than a straight set, because a straight set's not extremely difficult weight, not high weight, correct?
You could do a straight set. I mean, I would consider a max a straight set.
Okay.
Like if a power lifter.
So you can do it with any any weight.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, a rest pause. Typically, for me, I want my clients to do between 10 and 12 reps because I feel like I wouldn't do a rest pause on a squat. Yeah, that'd probably just be setting people up for like hurting themselves because you're using a heavy weight and it's spine loaded and stuff like that. But like on a leg press, yeah, I'll do a rest pause because there's no real potential for injury if I'm watching them. It's very isolated and they can use a heavy weight on that too, and then repeat the set. Yeah. So it just depends. I mean, depends on the trainer. For me, I love rest pauses on. I like to use relatively heavy weight on rest pauses for certain exercises. So.
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
So.
So yeah, that's basically weight training and quote unquote bodybuilding style.
Yes.
But yeah, great for your muscles.
Sure.
Great to build some I always fuck this word up. Excuse me. We'll have to put a censor on this one.
Hypertrophy.
It's not hypertrophy though. It's
so we learned it originally as hypertrophy.
Yes, but it's hypertrophy.
But I think I don't know. I say hypertrophy because that's how my what do they call it? Professors say it. Yeah. And like physiology and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, when I was doing my personal training stuff, I always said hypertrophy, and someone corrected me, and I was like, "Does it matter?"
It's the same way. It's the same way. But yes, you're right.
Yeah.
It's great for muscle hypertrophy, which is just muscle tissue growth.
Yes.
So if this one is specifically like if you're trying to build muscle for any reason, like you're gonna want to use this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's really great too because you need rest days after you work the muscles. So
and this style training is gonna make you sore.
Yes.
Typically, like very sore.
And it's really effective. So. Yeah. All right, let's talk about cardio training.
Oh, I love cardio. I used to love cardio even more than I do now.
I've never been a big fan. I think because I did it for so long that after I didn't have to do it, no one was forcing me to. I was like,
I've always been like, I loved running. Like I want to get back into running after our wedding because I'm training for a very specific purpose right now. But when I just can do my own thing, I love running. Yeah,
I love running outside when the weather's nice. I can't do it in the winter times. Just the cold.
It hurts.
And me, we don't get along unless I'm on a mountain snowboarding.
Fair enough. That's fair.
But yes, so running is one type of cardio training.
Right.
There's also getting on the bike, doing bicycle riding, outdoor, indoor, whatever, stationary bike, Peloton, whatever.
Right. Swimming is a great one. elliptical. I mean, pretty much any cardio machine you see in the gym, cardio machine, and walking.
Yeah.
I mean, people walk and lose a ton of weight.
Yeah.
I mean,
walking on an incline is so effective.
Yeah. I mean, walking is probably the most commonly used cardio and one of the most effective,
and
I would
one of
say.
the most underrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree.
For sure.
But cardio is great because you're obviously getting your heart rate up, which makes it great for cardiovascular health, heart health. Anybody with high cholesterol, it's really going to help get those levels down of bad cholesterol and then increase the good cholesterol. Can lower your blood pressure. It really helps with your metabolism, which I know is important for a lot of people, or at least very commonly talked about.
For sure.
With a lot of people.
Yep. And that's due to increased cardiovascular health too. Yep. And yeah, I mean, if you go to your doctor and they say, "Hey, your LDL is down, your HDL is, it looks good," like that means you're doing a good job, and this will help with that for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you said it lowers blood pressure. It's great for internal health. Fantastic. Absolutely. For internal health. And
it's also great for weight loss.
Right.
So if weight loss is one of your goals,
yes,
make cardio training a part of your regimen, because you can still lift weights, still great, but incorporating a day of cardio where you're getting your heart rate up, you're focusing on burning calories, and shedding the extra fat on your body.
Right.
It's really going to help cardio. Cardio.
Yeah, I think for me, when I train people, I always say, cardio loses weight, weightlifting gains weight, but it's not bad weight.
Yes.
It's gonna be a muscle mass weight most often. And then, cardio can be for fat loss. It depends on how you utilize it. Mm-hmm. But for sure, if I had a client who was on the heavier side, high BMI or something like that, I would implement cardio first, and then make weightlifting secondary, because primarily the goal for somebody who's heavier is to take weight off first, and then you're going to want to recomp as it goes. But for sure, you're going to want to incorporate weightlifting if you're trying to lose weight.
Yeah, I feel like pairing the two is typically where we find a lot of our clients.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can talk about that after we get to our third style, because I think we wanted to talk about, okay, what's your goal? This is this is what we would suggest type of thing. But just know that, cardio is like a specific for internal health and weight loss.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Like we can say, cardio is not going to be the style of training that you want to interact with most often if you're trying to build muscle mass.
Yes, I totally agree. And I will even say, I know a lot of people who are like, I do cardio and I'm not losing weight. I think it's really important to incorporate that weightlifting and adding weight to your exercises and not doing strictly cardio. Yeah,
and cardio is hard. So I think I totally agree with you. I hear that often. And the thing is, cardio is hard to implement. So weightlifting, I feel like it's easy to want to challenge yourself with weightlifting.
Yeah.
Because people constantly want to lift more weight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With cardio, you lose weight pretty rapidly at the beginning, especially if you're heavy. But then what people don't realize is with cardio, the only other option is to add time or intensity. That's the only way you change. And with cardio, you only can sprint so fast.
Yeah.
You only can run so long. You get to a point where you're running 3 hours a day and you're not losing any more weight. Well, you're not going to unless you run 3.5 hours a day.
Yeah.
Because your metabolism's adjusted to it.
Yes.
And so unless you're willing to just keep adding time to your cardio, it's not going to be effective forever.
Yes, that's such a great point. Yeah.
And so that's where the combination
Mm-hmm.
should really start to play a part. I mean, way before you get to the point of running 3.5 hours a day, unless you're training for a marathon or something like that. But that's an extreme example. But I would say for sure I hear that a lot. So it's good to know.
Yeah. Well, cardio training is great, and it's very valuable for your cardiovascular health. Great for longevity in the long run.
For sure.
Help to get those weight loss goals and help with endurance too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
All right, next style. HIIT.
Yes, high intensity. Well, okay, for the purpose of this, we'll say high intensity interval training.
Yes,
is what we'll call it.
That is what HIIT stands for.
Yes, but any high intensity workout that's not traditional weightlifting could be categorized in this, I think. Yeah.
I think a lot of my circuit trainings are basically HIIT.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Most circuit training, I feel like, is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, I think when people think of HIIT, they think of body weight only.
Yeah, they do.
Which is true. Right. You can definitely get hidden, and it's mostly body weight stuff. Mm-hmm. When I do high intensity interval training, I usually always have some kind of weight.
Oh yeah.
Like if I'm doing step ups, I'm like,
it doesn't have to be a heavy weight,
5,
but
10 pounds.
Well, I mean, also once you get to a point where you're you're in shape, right? Like I would say all of the trainers here are in shape.
Yeah.
Your body weight's not usually enough anymore.
Right.
So it depends on where you're at, I think, in your journey too. Mm-hmm. For somebody who's a beginner and maybe overweight, we don't really need to lose weight because their body weight would probably be enough. Right.
Yeah, no, it definitely looks different for everybody, for sure. But it's not just one thing, is my point.
Totally, yeah. You can do lots of different stuff with this. I think this is probably the most versatile one.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. But the training style is basically doing, obviously, high intensity. Mm-hmm. So you want to do pretty much like, not short bursts, but moderately short bursts of high intensity energy, do short rest periods. And it's like a back-to-back. You are constantly moving.
We're talking the matter of like minutes, some seconds, like you're probably not. I mean, I'm not going to do jumping jacks for like 5 minutes. No. Right. Like if that was one of my exercises that I'm incorporating into like a circuit, I'll probably do it for a minute.
Yeah. A good example would be jump roping for 1 minute.
Yes.
Taking a 15-second rest. And then getting right into step ups for a minute. Mm-hmm.
That's a good example. Mm-hmm. So we can name a lot of different things that you could incorporate into this, but you could sprint. Sprinting is common. Yes, I'd say probably the most common one. Yeah. Jump roping is a great one. Uh-huh. Any jumping exercises I see people do a lot. Now that can be modified for people who have like knee or ankle or problems, stuff like that, but.
You can always modify mostly anything in a HIIT.
Yeah,
you can do steps instead of a jump or whatever the case.
But if I can, I incorporate jumping exercises, squat jumps, something like that. Uh-huh. Body weight exercises, stair climbing, functional movements with lower weights, like you were talking about, kettlebells, swings, stuff
snatches.
Like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see a lot of that in these.
I love HIIT. I probably do a HIIT workout for myself personally like once a week. But I kind of substitute that for my cardio, especially in the wintertime, because I don't like to get outside. Yeah. In the summer, I'll definitely do more of that cardio and run outside. But when I'm just cold and I'm outside, get my cardio in still, it's just, I can't get on the treadmill and the lift. I get so bored. Yeah. So HIIT training is great to get your cardio in, and then again you're helping with fat loss, and because you're doing so much body weight stuff, it's going to help with the muscle mass too. So it's 2 for 1.
And mobility.
Yeah.
Pretty often. I mean, as long as you're performing everything correctly, I feel like it would help with mobility. And this one is also, I would say, since you're adding so much cardio in with like the movements, good for cardiovascular health. Like all of this is good for cardiovascular health. It's all working out, but some are better than others. Like they target different things, right? Cardio and HIIT's going to target cardiovascular health more than weight training is. And it's going to, lower your blood pressure, similar to cardio. Your cardio and HIIT are going to help with your blood sugar and insulin sensitivity, your metabolism, all of that. And like Dani said, I'd say this one for me equates to the most fat loss.
I agree completely.
Fat loss specifically, not weight loss.
Yes,
right.
I agree completely.
Mm-hmm.
Because you are working on toning your muscles,
right,
as well as shedding those extra pounds like at the same time.
Right. And cardio, for me, you know, like if you do a long bout of endurance cardio, running, whatever, biking, your body is going to utilize literally everything it can to make that happen. And oftentimes it's only going to focus on your slow twitch, deep muscle fibers. And the superficial type 2 muscle fibers, they get eaten up for energy or left behind. And that's usually what gives people that nice and toned look. And this style training, because it's not oxidative, like you're not going to have oxygen, your heart rate's going to be up high the whole time because it's high intensity and you don't take very much rest. And you're really going to not necessarily build muscle, but you're going to preserve the superficial muscle that gives you the look that people look for when they want to look fit.
For sure, which is something you do tend to lose if you're doing a lot of cardio.
For sure, yeah. Because I mean, your body wants energy, and you know you do that for so long. It's just natural. I mean, you're gonna have fantastic slow twitch fibers. Yeah. But you can't. Those are hard to see. Those are deep muscles, and they're not as ready to grow, right? Like they don't get like big and full and toned like type 2 fibers do. So it's different, but this one for sure is going to preserve that muscle mass on top of forcing fat loss because you're doing cardio, but you're not letting yourself have a ton of oxygen because it's high intensity. Yes. So the only real energy source that your body's going to have is anything you've eaten beforehand and excess fat. Yep. To use while you're doing this. So if somebody really wants to focus on fat loss specifically, I would add in HIIT for them.
I agree.
Yeah.
Totally.
I would add in HIIT over traditional cardio. Like long bouts of traditional cardio. Yeah.
Which leads us right into, when we think of these training styles, well, when our listeners, I know you're out there. Yes. When you think of these training styles, you have to first think about what your goals are. Right. So really sit down with yourself, be honest, and figure out what it is exactly that you want and what your body really needs. Right. Totally. You said that great. I can't even reiterate it. Just what do you feel like you need and what do you feel like you want at the end of the day? Like, what do you want to, we're talking a lot about physique changes, so that's what we're going to focus on. What do you want to look like? Yeah. Like, what is the goal of working out besides, the mental health and the spiritual health that comes with just being healthier? And and the internal, like we talked a lot about the cardiovascular. Right. How do you want your body to feel and function? Yeah. And all of these are going to help with that no matter what. But at the end of the day, if you're heavier, you're struggling with excess fat in your abdomen or something like that, like what of these is going to give you what you're looking for at the end of the day, or if you're somebody who's like, I have no muscle tone and I just have a little bit of excess fat and I can't get rid of it, but all I do is I run an hour a day. Well, we just talked about that the running is not doing you any good at that point in your fitness goals, right? In your health goals. Yeah. It's not saying that it doesn't do you any good. I'm sure your cardiovascular health is great, but for the goal that you have, is it working? Yeah. And what can you do differently if it's not? Right. So, I mean, we could give a few examples. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And also be mindful that goals change. Right. As Sam and I started the podcast of being like, how many different styles have you done? Like, we've been in the fitness world since we were, young adults. Yes. And it's ever changing and your body is always evolving, and
sure.
you're going to have to switch it up depending on what your goals turn into, what your body is like, oh wait, I don't need any more of that, or I need more of this.
Right.
So don't think it's just a one size fits all.
Oh no, I'll just give a short example for myself so that people like understand. We're not preaching at you. We've been there for sure. But when I was in college, I wanted to just be thin because I was a dancer, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to be thin,
Mm-hmm.
run constantly. I got there. I was very thin,
Yeah.
right? And then I was like, cool, this is great. And then I get to my adult years now, and I'm just now switching over to where I was running constantly, and then I start working with a coach, and I'm like, yeah, I want to look this certain way. Okay, well, you got to stop running. Like, all of a sudden, done running, done swimming, done biking. I used to be compete in triathlons. Completely done. Only weightlifting.
Mm-hmm.
You want to build muscle? That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
It was point blank. It's like, okay, completely switched up my training style because I had a different goal at the time.
Yeah.
Now, when my wedding's over, because that's really what all this is for. When my wedding's over, I'll probably go back to running and stuff because I'll have a different goal. Like, I don't, after my wedding, honestly, I don't really care what else. Whatever.
Yeah. Sam just wants to feel good.
Yeah.
And when you feel good, you look good.
Right. As long as I'm healthy and I feel great, I don't care. But
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's just an example. Like, I had different goals at different times in my life, and my training switched because of it.
Yes, yeah. I can completely relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I was in college, I'm genetically blessed. I mean, shout out to Mama V and her good genes. But I've never really been like, I want to be thin.
Right.
Because it's just my body structure in general.
Right.
But when I was running, I had more fat on my body than I ever have in my life.
Interesting.
Yeah. I held a lot of fat in my stomach. I probably weighed like 120 to 125, which is, I weigh like 117 to 123 is like what I range now.
Okay.
And I am my body is completely different. I have so much more muscle on my body, and after running for so long and realizing that it didn't change any toning,
right,
it didn't make me stronger,
right,
I switched my style up and I was like, I want to be stronger.
Right.
I want to be able to rock climb, and
right,
I want to be able to lift my body weight. And then I've been really into yoga. And so that's when a lot of my HIIT training came in, because it was like, I really want mobility. I want functionality.
Right.
I want to be able to, play with my boyfriend's nephew and pick him up and swing him around. And so, yeah, definitely the training style changed.
And let's talk about, that can be our last thing. When you said, you were running and you were holding more fat, and now you almost weighed the same.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And your body's completely different.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to note, because we were talking about, if you want to lose fat, if you want to gain muscle, blah, blah, blah. There's always a way to what we call body recomposition, which is what I would say you went through.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
Where you the thing is, I feel like people get stuck on, they come in, they might be heavier, they want to lose weight or something like that, and then we put them into weightlifting, and it's like, well, I don't want to get bulky, I don't want to gain weight. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, when you do a combination of these things, when you weightlift and you add cardio and you do some HIIT training and stuff like that, what you're going to end up doing is gaining muscle, but losing overall weight and fat on the body, around everywhere, systemically. Yeah. And that's called body recomposition. And you'll probably end up around the same weight, to be honest, once you're at a very healthy place in your body.
Yeah.
It depends on where you started, right?
Absolutely.
It depends on how you come in. But a lot of people, you end up not as low in weight as I think people anticipate.
Yes, absolutely. Because it is like, I want to shed those extra few pounds.
Right.
That's usually how people put it.
Yeah.
Well, typically, to shed those extra few pounds, you have to add an extra few pounds in muscle.
Right.
So it ends up weighing itself out.
Right.
Pun intended.
Yeah, you're right. So, Yeah, you said that better than I did. But yes, for sure, that's what ends up happening. And I think this is just like a PSA to tell people, don't get discouraged when you're really going into like this body recomposition phase where you've like lost weight and now you're like, okay, I want to be more muscular and I want to be stronger and I want to have that fit look. Okay, well, you're probably going to gain some weight back, but not all weight is bad weight.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be. And that's where, personal trainers like us come in, like everybody at Zero Doubt Club, where we can really help you understand, like, just because you're not losing weight doesn't mean you're not progressing.
Absolutely.
And depending on the style you're using and your goals, it's gonna change.
Yeah. So really sit down and think about your goals and figure out what your body really needs and even what your mental really needs.
Right.
Maybe you've been running for so long, and not only does your body need a little bit of weightlifting, but for your mental, running is just becoming a chore.
Right.
And you need to switch it up.
Yeah, you need a break.
Yeah. So just get serious with yourself about what it is that you want and what your end goal is, and then
the thing is, I mean, at the end of this, I feel like this was just us coming on here to say, don't get discouraged if you're not making progress. There's a million ways to make progress. And if you don't know how, then people like us are here to like help you, like listen to this podcast. Like there's a million ways to train. These were literally 3 of a ton.
Yeah.
And you can make progress in many, many, many different ways. You just have to be clear with your goals and what your body needs at the time. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well said.
All right,
guys. Well, thanks so much for listening. We will see you next week, probably. Yeah. I don't know.
We might not be here, but
I think Jeremy wants to get on the podcast.
Oh yeah, Jeremy needs to tell his story about his new ayahuasca journey.
Yes. So there's a preface for next week.
Yes, to be continued.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone.
All right, guys. Have a good day.